Welcome back. You know, one of the words that we hear a lot in even news coverage today is the word evil. Do we really understand what that means? Do we know what it means, where it comes from, what it is saying? Very timely for us to have with us today Pastor John Veal. He's the senior pastor of the Enduring Faith Christian Center in Chicago. He's the CEO of the John Veal Ministries. He is a regular contributor to Charisma Magazine online, and the author of several books, including Destroying Demonic Tactics and Racism, and The Church and the Nation. He does have a website, johnveal, VEAL.org, and there's a picture of the books and the picture of his landing page there. Pastor John, good to see you. How are you, friend?
Hey, great to be on with you. Great to be on with you. Excited about the topic.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Do you think we understand the word evil? Christians?
I think in some form we do, in some way we do, but we have to really understand what evil looks like and how to recognize it. Because evil can come disguised as good. It can look like something good, and we think it's God, and it's not always God. The blessings that we receive don't always come from God. They can come from the enemy in order to keep you or to trap you. So it's very, very important to discern. Ephesians 6 tells us about that, about discerning of spirits, having that gift to really know what's of God and what's not of God, because the devil is a master of disguise. He'll come looking like God, sounding like God, and many people are deceived because they think it's God and they think they're doing the right thing. Paul was the same way. Paul was party to killing Christians, but he had a Damascus Road experience where he woke up and really saw that what he was doing was not of God, because he thought he was doing the will of God. I think that's what happens in today's society. They think they're doing the will of God, and sometimes it's really the will of Satan.
So what drew you to investigate demonic tactics?
Well, I did a book called Supernaturally Delivered in 2018, I believe, and it really opened my eyes up to the tactics of the enemy, what the enemy is trying to do in this season. Really, it was an homage to my spiritual mother, Ruth Brown, that did a powerful book called Destroying the Works of Witchcraft Through Fasting and Prayer. It really, really resonated within my life. That's how I met her. I read her book and I reached out to her. And in her book, she talks about the power of fasting, how she went on 2 or 3 fasts, 40-day fasts, and she was a forklift operator. So she never missed work. She did this straight through. And it's a phenomenal book. I'd never seen anything like it. And so that inspired me really to dive into spiritual warfare. And what made it so amazing, well, not really amazing, but intrepid, I would say, is that the warfare I experienced when I wrote Supernaturally Delivered was unlike any other. I mean, the devil attacked me, my family, my daughters, everybody, even our church. And so I vowed that I would not do another spiritual warfare book unless the Lord actually said to do it, because the devil was fighting so hard. But then he did speak to me about destroying demonic tactics, and now we have the book in our hands today from that experience.
Wow. Because you've experienced this, have you asked the Lord for a greater discernment?
Absolutely. I've really, when I was writing Destroying Demonic Tactics, I really prayed and covered myself, fasted. I learned my lesson from Supernaturally Delivered, even though when I was writing it, my middle daughter and my oldest daughter were in a bad accident, but thank God they're okay. But even while I was writing the book, the devil was fighting us. And that's what made it so kind of difficult to do. But it was a much smoother experience than Supernaturally Delivered because I was more prepared for it.
Are there similarities in dealing with demonic tactics?
I would say yes, because the devil, he doesn't have any new tricks. He just uses new avenues in terms of getting his agenda, through to us. He'll use modern technology. He'll use AI. He'll use smartphones. He'll use even those social media games. He uses those as well to kind of infiltrate, to get in what seems harmless or innocent. It's not really. It's an ulterior motive. So he has new tactics for a new age, and that's what I talk about in Destroying Demonic Tactics.
Okay, there's so much here, John. Let me ask you this: when you're in leadership, you're going to be attacked. It just comes with the territory, okay? Mm-hmm. And sometimes those attacks come from people you love. Mm-hmm. and they may not know that they're being used that way. How in the world do you figure that out?
Yeah, that's one of Satan's main strategies is use people that we love, that we trust. Anyone can be infiltrated if they open themselves up to it, to the enemy. So what happens is Satan looks for the weakest link, even in your family. He'll look for someone that's not maybe all the way saved or involved in other things that are not godly, and those are the perfect people for him to use to try to disrupt what the person of God is trying to do. I've seen it even in my own family. So again, it takes discernment. It definitely takes deliverance. And the person's got to want to be delivered. There's some people that love their demons. They don't want to get rid of their demons. I've seen that within our church. We fight with a demon and wonder why it's not leaving, why it's not coming out, because the person actually doesn't want it to leave. And that's what makes it so hard and so difficult. But again, it takes discernment, it takes prayer, it takes really, really seeing the will of God within your own life and within their lives and identifying that and ministering to them in that way.
How do you discern between God saying no or an attack from the enemy?
Well, it's so funny because when I got saved, my wife wasn't saved. And so one day I was going to go and witness to her, and I was about to open the door, and the Lord said, be quiet. He said, let me handle this. And he's basically telling me no. And what happened, I just lived it in front of her, and she became beautifully saved. So there's a no that God will give you that's really a blessing in disguise. And I preached a message years ago called "There's a Blessing in No." So sometimes you're thankful for that no. You're thankful for no to that certain opportunity that you wanted, and God ended up giving you something so much greater. So there's really a blessing in no, but we've got to discern God's no. And the devil, when he says, he's not going to tell you no very often. He's going to tell you yes, to do something crazy, to do something ridiculous. But again, when you hear that no, it's usually going to come from God.
Wow, good answer. How do you love somebody that's doing evil things?
You gotta love them. You gotta love them. I have someone in my own life that's very close to me, and this person doing some evil things, but it doesn't change my love. In fact, I love them more because we thank God that He loved us when we were in our mess, when we were doing all kind of crazy things before we got saved. I know I was doing crazy stuff, and I thank God for His love. In fact, if I can relay this story to you, I'll try to make it very brief. When I was in college, I came home. I had just gotten saved. I was in North Carolina Central University, and I came home. I was trying to make a decision. I was struggling with all these things. And so one day I was with a friend, and he had a BB gun that looked real, looked like a real gun. And so what happened, he said he was arrested stopped by the police multiple times because they thought it was a real gun. So we have this gun. And so somehow or another, I got into my own hands, and we decided we're going to just, mess around, play with the gun. So we run across the street into another alley. It's a busy street. And as I'm running across the street, I hear a voice. Now, it's not like this Holy Spirit speaking to your spirit and your spirit translates. It's like an actual voice that was at my ear that said, take the gun, put it in your shorts, and put your shirt over it. And so I didn't understand. I mean, I couldn't believe what I was hearing. And then I said, what? And then it said it again with more authority, like a parent talking to you. It said, take the gun, put it in your shorts, put your shirt over it. And I did it all while I'm running across the street. I put it in my shorts, put my shirt over it, not knowing why I'm doing this. So we're in front of another alley. And all of a sudden, these two motorcycles pull up behind us. And they tell us, like, freeze or turn around. And so I turn around, my friend turns around, and they draw their guns. So they identify themselves as undercover detectives, and they heard of a robbery in the area, and they saw us running across a busy street, and they thought we were the robbers. And I said, no, I'm just home from college. We're just messing around. They said, okay, well, be more careful next time. They ride off into the night. And what happens is, as I'm walking, I don't think I ever told my friend this. I mean, I thought about it. If I had that gun in my hand and I turned around, we would have both been killed. So it's God's warning, God's protection, and that's what was so awesome about that testimony. That was the only time I ever heard God's voice like that, maybe one other time, but not audibly like that. But God told me just enough to save my life. So I'm here today.
What a story. What a story. Let me take a quick break. But let me say to our viewers and listeners, check out his book, Destroying Demonic Tactics, there it is, and Racism. And then The Church and the Nation. There's a picture of his books and his website, johnveal.org. When we come back, it's interesting that you would put demonic tactics and racism on the same line. We'll talk about that when we come back. Okay, welcome back, and glad to have with us today Pastor John Veal, the senior pastor there of Enduring Faith Christian Center in Chicago. He's authored a couple books, Destroying Demonic Tactics. There's a picture of that one. And then Racism, the Church and the Nation. He does have a website, johnveal.org. Boy, I wish I had you for about 3 hours, Pastor, but let me just kind of grab some things in here. I don't know if this is a stretch, but is racism demonic?
Yeah, of course it is. It's very demonic. It's kept us separate, even as a nation, as a country, for so many years. And I live in Chicago, and I've seen it firsthand. I mean, the division that is within the city. I mean, we moved to an area about 5 years ago that is 90 something percent Caucasian. And we see that almost on a daily basis. I mean, it's not like too evident where we are to a certain degree. We have very, very nice neighbors, but we still get looks. We still get, people that are not happy about us being even in the neighborhood. So yeah, it's definitely an evil thing. It's definitely of Satan. And again, it keeps us divided.
The reason I'm asking that is because it's interesting. John 3:16, for God so loved the world that whosoever, let's just stop right there.
Mm-hmm.
That's all races right there. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then we go on and we will raise money to send missionaries to 4 corners of the earth to witness to all races, but we won't talk about racism in the church. Why?
Mm-hmm. We need to. I mean, it's all based on perception. I think I talk about in the book how it's basically media based. I mean, we look at a lot of media. Like we look at news, nightly. We see a lot of minorities being arrested, doing all kind of crazy things, and that kind of distorts the perception of that particular race until we really get to know them and who they are. And I believe there should be more open conversations about racism within the church. I mean, 1 John 3:8 says that Jesus came to destroy the works of the devil. And so that's a work of the devil because, again, it keeps that divided line, that division. And in the book, I talk about how there are conferences and either they're all, Caucasian, they're all Black, all whatever. But I'm starting to see more conferences that look like everyone, if that makes sense, because I believe the kingdom is diverse and there's diverse cultures within the kingdom, and that must be evident, especially in the apostolic ministry.
So how can we get together? If I came to your church, would you let me preach?
Absolutely. Absolutely, Karen. Yeah, come on. That'll be next week.
I mean, somehow we gotta demonstrate what we believe.
Absolutely. I do that. I preach, and one of my friends was just telling me this morning how I've preached in a lot of churches that are not Black. I mean, it's multicultural. I was just with Sid Roth. It's Supernatural. He's a Jewish believer and has a phenomenal show. This is my second time on, and that's what I love about it. I love about that diversity. I love that my kids are experiencing that diversity. Very, very important. Very, very important. But we've got to be able to open our doors up and open our platforms up to people of different races. Very, very important. That's kingdom.
There's another problem out there as it relates to racism. I find it interesting that we may be against racism across the board except for anti-Semitism.
Mm.
And what's interesting about that is you add to that Reconstruction theology,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll do a show on Israel and get off the air, and I'll have several emails saying that Israel and the Jews are no longer God's chosen.
Mm.
That alone is racist. What do we do here, Coach?
Educate. I mean, we're blessed because we bless Israel. We protect Israel. And I think when we get away from that, if we get away from that, it'd be detrimental to the United States. That's why we're so blessed, because Israel, the Jewish people, are God's chosen people. I believe that. And I believe the Gentiles were engrafted in by the work of Jesus Christ. So yeah, I can't stand that submitted to. I just can't. I mean, it's no place for that within the body of Christ and within the nation.
Do you think the whole issue of CRT is beginning to fade away?
Um, I'm not. I don't think it's fading away. I think that it's probably worsening in this season, and we have to be aware. And again, it comes back down to education. We've got to educate ourselves on these things, on the diversity within our nation, outside of our nation. We have to become cognizant and sensitive to those type of things and those type of needs. It's very, very important in this season.
So, back to tactics of the enemy is to divide and conquer.
hmm
And when you have divide and conquer among races in public education, what do we do?
Well, that's my avenue. I've been a teacher with Chicago Public Schools for goodness almost 33 years now, and I've seen that disparity in terms of funding. I mean, we look at schools that are on the north sides of Chicago; they look like college campuses. And the school I'm at, and other schools in the surrounding areas, lack those funds to look like a college campus. So there is that disparity, that difference that shows a bit of racism within Chicago. And I think statistics show that basically Chicago may be one of the most racist cities in the nation. Not sure about that stat, but I know we've experienced that. When we had the shelter in place and there was a lot of looting in Chicago, the South Siders went without. I mean, the North Side was protected by police officers. The South Siders, I mean, we got it. I mean, my neighborhood at the time was decimated. In fact, there was one grocery store that had been totally destroyed. And so I drove past it the next day that after I heard it had been destroyed. And there were people, the parking lot was full. There were people walking out with shopping carts with kids. And guess what? I thought, maybe they fixed it up really, really quickly, but they didn't. These were all looters. And no police were around. No one was around to arrest them or do anything. And they just left us hanging. I'll never forget that.
So, Pastor, how are you received as a black Christian pastor in a public school?
Pretty well. I mean, I look at my family, it's very diverse. My grandfather came from Ireland, so I have Irish blood in me. I always tell my kids that we can wear green on St. Patrick's Day and celebrate with everybody else because we have my father's name was Dunnigan. His father was Dunnigan, came from Ireland. So, no, I'm well received. I believe that I've never had a problem with that or issue with that. I mean, our school is quite diverse in terms of staff, so we all get along well. We have Latinos, we have blacks, we have Caucasians. So it's a pretty well oiled machine. So no problems there.
Good for you. Coming back to this spiritual discernment, how would you gauge as a pastor the spiritual climate in America?
Very, very disjointed to a certain degree, right? I believe that there are so much schisms and isms between churches, denominations. This denomination believes this other one believes this, and it further keeps us divided, and it's a problem. And there's a rise of false pastors, false teachers, false prophets that have come on the scene that have really put a blemish on church as it is. I remember when I was little, I walked past a church and, we had such reverence for just the house of God, right? And there are some people that will smoke, drink, do all kind of things on a church doorstep without even thinking about that. I think we've lost the respect for the pastoral position because of what we've seen. We've seen so many fall, so many ones taken down in scandal, and it causes us to lose respect for that office. Some people think because I'm a pastor, I'm automatically going to be respected. Not necessarily, based on what we've already seen and what has transpired during the seasons, during the times. It's diminished the office to a certain degree.
So do you think we kind of lost the fear of God?
Absolutely. We need to bring the fear of God back because I think that there's something coming. I can't say what it is, but I believe it's soon that's coming to this nation, coming to this world. It's going to push people back to God, where the fear of God will be so evident that most of them have no choice but to turn back to him. I hate to see this happen. I'm praying against it because I feel like it's really terrible, but it might be what's needed to turn the hearts of people that have turned away from God.
So we've all talked about revival. Is it possible? And could God trust us with one?
I believe we're ripe for revival. I believe we've seen it in Ashbury and other places. I believe it's going to break forth, even I'd say within the next 10 years, we're going to see even more of it because there's a shaking coming to the earth realm. There's a shaking up of the church. There's a shaking up of the world where they will start to turn back to God. We see it happening slowly, but it's happening but I believe it's going to catch fire and spread like wildfire at a certain time. And I believe there will be a great world revival.
So one last question. Do you think the church is ignoring the transcendent part of God? Now, we have his word and we're doing a lot of preaching. Mm-hmm. But if we don't stop and allow for the transcendence of God, then who are we?
Exactly. We have to do that. We don't do that, we're in trouble. We have to do that. We have to believe. In fact, I just heard this in my spirit. We have to seek his face more than we do his hand. I believe so many believers are seeking the hand of God, which means his blessings, what he can do for us, instead of seeking his face, which means relationship, koinonia, fellowship. Very, very important. I think people are missing that. People are running from that. If they don't get blessed, they have a tendency to turn their backs on God. We look at Job in the book of Job. Job complained for 40 chapters. He went through all kind of things, all kind of terrible things, right? But at the end of it, when he prayed for the captivity of his friends, he ended up getting double for his trouble. I believe that we have to really, really not complain. The children of Israel, they complained and kept them in the desert for 40 years, all that complaining, murmuring, and arguing. So once we kind of stop doing that, we kind of start focusing on God, then we'll see that God really move in our lives like never before. But it's very important to get to that place and not to complain, but to pray.
You're fascinating. Can we get you back sometime?
Oh, absolutely. Would love to. Thank you, Perry.
Yeah. Let me say to our viewers and listeners, John Veal, VEAL.org is his website. Check out his two books. Destroying Demonic Tactics is one of the books, and the other one is Racism, the Church and the Nation. There's a picture of both those books on the cover of the screen there. And again, the website, johnveal.org. Thank you, Pastor, for your time. You're interesting, and I think you have a lot more to share. I want to dig in there a little more.
Thank you, Perry. Enjoyed being on with you. Thank you so much for that.
God bless you, friend.
You too. Blessings.